your most challenging day to film on SG1?
Again, challenging more because of circumstance was the day that we were doing, and I can't remember where it was in the sequence of filming, but it was the day that I was kind of, it's the opening bit where my hand comes out the sarcophagus and then
Ah,
I sit up. And I think I've talked quite a lot at conventions and on my show about the unbelievably uncomfortable outfit, which was so tight. And then also they had so weirdly, initially they'd made it so that the whole piece underneath and the little skirt with the flaps, like that was to wear underneath that really tight skirt. And then thank God somebody in costume went, hang on, hang on, hang on. We never see her take this off. We don't need to wear the double layer because it was sort of also, it was just making everything impossible to breathe. So they removed that and that made it a little more comfortable, but it was very heavily boned down the side. So when it like a corset is boned, you've got these rigid bones literally going down the front and the side and the back. And they tend to go down to sort of your, like below your belly button.
mm-hmm.
And so you can't sit in it because when you sit, it rises up like that. And you can't really get comfortable. Going to the loo was an absolute challenge.
Oh my
So they,
gosh.
and then, so any kind of movement like this, bending or turning sideways, is really difficult, which is why in period films, you can always see women in corsets. They're very straight because it absolutely changes how you sit, how you breathe. You can barely breathe. So they've
If you want to
lots of
breathe at
shallow
all.
breaths.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And they wanted me to come from lying down and
Oh
sit
my
up in like
gosh.
one go. And I was like, are you kidding? I could, So that was challenging. And then we had to do it over and over and over. It was
Oh
really
gosh.
technical. And funny enough, the one people think was really challenging was the getting out of the bathtub or into the bathtub, because obviously technology has really come a long way now. It would be interesting to see how they did that now. But then we filmed it in reverse.
Right.
So obviously I was dry going into the water wet, and then they just reversed the film. But I remember them saying really clearly, he's like, you can't blink. You have to
Yes.
keep your eyes open the whole time, because if you blink and we play it back, you'll be blinking backwards.
Yeah, you
So
because
rather
your
than
eyes are slower going up than they are going down.
exactly. So rather than doing that, they're going
Mm-hmm.
this way. So I was like, okay, going down in the water. And then the water started stinging my eyes, but I was like, can I close them now? Can I close them now? I can't close them now. Just keep going. But weirdly, we did that in one take.
Oh, it was one
Everyone was
take.
like, yeah, nailed it. So I was like, oh, okay. So the
Wow.
dress and coming out of that damn bloody sarcophagus was really challenging. And then lots of scenes where I couldn't, it's quite difficult to be seductive. Well, it's difficult for me to be seductive at the best of times, but it's difficult for her. I found it really difficult to not be able to move, because sensuality is about movement. And I was like I was a mummy in this outfit. But that's my job, to make it look like it was effortless and
There you
easy.
go. And talking about with Rainbow, one of the stories that really hit home for me, I'd like you to share it again if you'd be willing, was an experience where you had a costume fitting, and it was just you were being mistreated, and you
Yeah.
decided to stand up for yourself.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot I told that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I had asked him about, we were talking about kind of like how you deal with rejection and kind of building yourself up. And he was saying that it took a long time for him to find the power, I guess, to say, no, I'm not going to be spoken to like that or treated like that. And I said, me too. And in fact, it's only just recently happened. And he said, oh, what happened? And I said, well, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was in a costume fitting for a show that will remain nameless.
Yeah.
And the costume person is a very well-known, really respected costume lady. Huge amount of credits, like Academy Award winning. And I was really excited. And I got there, and there's a place in London that's essentially a massive warehouse, and each room is just so the front part of the room is a curtain, a big
Mm-hmm.
thick velvet drape, and then there's a door to the back, and the door goes out into this vast warehouse, so that when you're in your fitting, no one else can see you, but the costumier can run in and out to go and get stuff from the
Correct.
warehouse if they need to. But the rooms are next to each other and not particularly well labeled on the outside. So I go
Oh,
in for the
no.
fitting, and and actors' fittings are nightmarish anyway, because you have to get naked in front of someone you've never met. You're standing there in your pants, and sometimes if it's a period piece, which this was, I had to have like proper period underwear. So they were looking at stuff like that. And basically, she just started telling me what was wrong with me. She said, the first thing she said was, "You're very glamorous, very, very glamorous. That's not right for this role." And I was a bit like, what? And she went, "You've got far too much makeup on." And I was like, "Well, I obviously won't be wearing the makeup for the
Yeah.
shoot, but I mean, it's my
That's just
day
being,
off.
yeah.
I'm just how I dress. This is me." And she was like, "Well, put your hair in a ponytail. I need to see what it looks like in a ponytail. And take your clothes off. For heaven's sake, just take your clothes off, because how am I supposed to dress you? I can't see anything." And then I did. And she was like, "Well, that's not going to work." And she then went and got 2 outfits. And while she was getting the outfits, she's like, just because I was sort of standing there and it was quite cold. And I asked if I remember picking up a shirt, and she's like, "Take it off. For heaven's sake, don't put your top on. I need to look at you." Although it's not very pleasant looking at you, I have to be honest. And you're so capacious. Everything's so large. And I don't know, how are we going to make this work? And I just was kind of going, and then she went, "You're very tall. How tall are you?" And I said, "I'm 5'9.5, but I can be 5'8" if you like." And she went, "And your feet, you've got very small feet." Like nothing was right. And I could feel the tears coming. And then she went, "Well, wait here. I've got to go and get 2 outfits." And then shouting at her assistant, she was like, "Get the thing, and get the enormous one, and then get the one, get the one in the size that she's given us," as if I'd lied about my sizes. And then she came back, and I kid you not, with what looked like a tent. It was like, and she went, "Well, there's this or this. Frankly, I think you're going to have to wear this, because I doubt this will fit you." And then she shuffled off again to go and get me the ugliest pair of shoes. And the assistant kind of must have taken a look at my face and just went, "I'm so sorry. She's really stressed." And I went, "Yeah, I can
That's
tell."
clear.
And
And she's
then she
making
walked
calls that
out.
are like a casting director's call. She's the costumer.
Exactly. And constantly going on about how she just kept saying, "You're so glamorous. Take your jewelry off, and then take your lipstick off." She was like obsessed with my face. And then while I was waiting in my now pants and sort of weird petticoat and a sort of strange 60s bra,
And
some
someone
guy
else,
walks in.
yes.
Yes. And I was like, "Oh, hi." And he's like, oh man, my bad, wrong room." And I was just like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And in that moment, I was like, hang on, hang on, hang on. You have 2 choices here. You can either fall apart and burst into tears, which is what I was feeling I wanted to do, and run away and hide, or you can stand up to this gremlin of a woman, and she was tiny, she's like 5 foot at most, and you can absolutely use your power and your experience and speak your truth. And when she came back in, I went and I stood as close to her, and I like literally loomed over her, and she was like, "Oh, right." And I said, "Look, this is a fitting. I'm here for an hour and a half. Anything that doesn't fit, you'll have to adjust it. But why don't we try the dress before you decide whether it's going to fit or not? And let's see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit, you fix it. That's your job." And she was like, "Right, well," and thank God it fitted perfectly. The belt was a bit tight, but I remember I came home and I said to Chris, "I'm not eating for 2 weeks, because that belt is going to," because it fitted, but I was like, "Oh, I can barely breathe," but I'm not going to tell her. But by the time we shot, it looked great. Everything worked. And I wore the dress that they had picked originally, no tent, none of the other stuff, but in the process. And I've subsequently found out, funny enough, because somebody saw my interview, that there was another actress on that job who was very young. It was her first job. So 19 or 20. First
So she
job,
won't know better.
won't have a clue. Went for the fitting, all went well, really excited, and had a major role in this. And on the first day of filming, this same woman was like, "Oh my God, you put on weight on the holidays. Oh, well, your costumes aren't going to fit you. You're fat now. What am I going to do with you? You're fat." And this poor girl went into makeup, was like, "What's wrong with me?" Size, teeny tiny. I mean, it's outrageous. And a woman, that's the worst part. Like, a sister. I was like, come on.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that was quite a horrific story.
Well, some people, you know, all of us, uh, except for cops and a few other professions, can have a bad day. But it's your choice as to whether or not you are going to dump on another person at the same time. You
Yeah,
can just say, you know what? Just to let you know up front, I'm having a bad one. I'm going to do what I can. Please work with
yeah,
me. But
yeah,
man, holy crap, Suanne. And good
yeah.
for
No, she
you
was
for standing up
outrageous.
for yourself. And it wasn't that you were being a bully back. It was you were putting a stop to it to
Yeah,
prevent more from happening, you know?
yeah. But I'm going to tell, I got on the train and cried all the way home. And by the time I got home, I was in such a state. And actually, my brilliant husband was like, you should throw a tantrum. You should phone your agent and you should throw a tantrum and you should threaten not to turn up because this is outrageous, particularly as she is who she is.
Right. This
And
was
then
if
when I,
this was an award-winning
yeah,
costumer, then yeah.
yeah. And then you think how many other young women and older women, and then she had a
Correct.
go at the lead actress who's a massive star. She had a go at her about her wig. And I was like, well, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, but then I realized on that day when she had a go about the wig, which isn't even her department, I thought there's something not right here. This woman is basically a poisonous little, and she's
Yeah, she's
something
abusive.
happened because it's all, yeah, it's not actually about me. This is her stuff.
Hmm.
But in that moment where, and my God, talk about being vulnerable, as I said, you're in your panties and nothing else. And some guy walks in, I was like, oh, what is happening? It
Right.
was awful,
Yeah.
awful.
Well, good for you for rising up above that. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you.
absolutely. And thank you for sharing that story, because it's just like,
Oh, it's a
all of
pleasure.
us in our industry, have dealt not certainly in that necessarily type of situation, but dealt with people like that. And sometimes, not to get mean back, but sometimes, you have to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And if
And
you have the power to stand up for others, that's something that, I mean, each of us have to
yeah.
consult ourselves and deep down and think about too.
And there are things, I mean, when I first moved to LA, I mean, I've never told this story publicly. I'm not sure I should. But when I first moved to LA, I auditioned for a pilot that was called Easy Streets, E-Z Streets, and directed by, oh God, who's the guy who wrote and directed Crash? Paul, his name escapes me anyway. You're looking it up. Fantastic. Very well known, Oscar winning. Paul
Haggis. Paul
Haggis.
Haggis. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And he was wonderful. And basically, I don't know anyone who. So pilot season, you audition, you get a callback, another
Mm.
callback, another callback. Then you go in front of the producers, and you get another callback, and you go to the network. And going to network is a big, big, big deal because there's usually only three of you. They never do two. They always pick an uneven number, and you're basically shoved in front of the entire network, which is mostly men. Um,
You're on
and all
display.
the you're on display, and you then have to act. You
No.
also have to sign your contract before you go in, so you can be sitting with $20 in your bank account and look at a contract that gives you, from, if you get this job from tomorrow, $25,000 an episode or whatever it is, maybe. So that's a bit of an adjustment. And then you're looking at the two other people who at this point are your competition, and they keep you all together in the room. I don't know if they still do that, but this is what they did when I was there.
Mm.
Anyway, and I went in and I had to fight for this thing because initially they were like, well, they wanted her British, and then they didn't want her British, and then she was American. Then they came back, and then one of the producers was like, oh, but now I've heard her British. I don't know if I'm convinced about her being American. So I had to go out and be American. Anyway, it was this like endless process. And then they were like, her clothes aren't sexy enough. She needs to dress more sexy. So I was like, okay, so, lower the shirt, higher the skirt, tighter jackets. My housemate at the time was tiny, and I somehow squeezed myself into one of her jackets, which was really tight on me, but did the trick. And Paul Haggis was absolutely amazing all the way through it. And I know he really, really wanted me. Casting director was brilliant. And on the final day, I went in and I did, and there were 4 scenes, and it was a brilliant part, brilliant part. And I went in and I read, and you literally, they ask you to do like a 360. You're on like a little platform, a little stage in the kind of bowels of CBS, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about to go out, and Paul Haggis looked at me and went like that, and the casting director was like, so I was like, oh, yes. And you know, you're shaking as a, and I was about to go, and he turned around and he said, does anybody have any questions for Suanne? Anything before we let her go? And deathly silence. And also they're awful because they just look at you like this.
Yeah.
There's nothing from them.
Yeah.
So he's like, great, Suanne, if you want to just go and wait outside, we're going to see the other two, and then we'll let you know if you can stay or go. And I was like, okay. And as I had my hand on the doorknob to leave, doorknob, there's that word again, this voice from the back, and very physically similar to Harvey Weinstein, feet up on a chair, smoking a cigar, went, yeah, it's not so much a question, but like, I don't know, like, I don't want to fuck her. Do you want to fuck her? Anybody here? Anybody want to fuck her? I don't know if I want to fuck her. What do you do with that? And I just remember Paul Haggis going, well, I think everyone was, and I was like, and needless to say, I did not get the job, but the show didn't get picked up. It got canceled. So, but yeah, that was a bit of an adjustment to come back from, because you're just like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, Hathor felt like a nice vindication of that, because I was like,
I would imagine so. Jeez.
She's a sexy, desirable gal. Take that, Mr. Big Shot. But yeah, you know, I mean, I could tell you stories all day, but I won't, because I've kept you long enough.
No, this is.
And pardon the language, I have to.
No,
use
you're okay for historical accuracy. Yeah. It is a business that is cutthroat, and I mean the fact of the matter is, you know, beauty is so subjective, you know, and one of the things that I think is so wonderful about the age of television that we're moving into is that, and movies, slowly but surely, we're showing that it's so much more personality than it is just physicality and looks.
Yeah.
Looks, unfortunately, are always going to be a thing. There's always going to be men and women who are going to go and say, I want that. I will watch more of that because I want to see more of them. Them's just the facts, you know?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, you can have these plus size characters in a lot of these shows who are just fantastic to watch. They've gone out of their way to find someone who has personality as the biggest thing, you know, and that you have to do everything you can, you know, to get the job, obviously. But at a certain point, it's like, you know, you're going to have those people in the room who are just like, well, this is a toxic human being, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know,
I mean, I think it's very different now. I mean, that kind of behavior would never, ever, ever fly now. Certainly not after the Me Too. Yeah, thank God. But, you know, I agree. And I think the other interesting thing is that we're becoming much more, God, that story's made me feel sweaty.
It's intense. Yeah. Thanks for watching this clip from Dial the Gate. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. It's our goal to share a new Stargate story every day while we're on break. Please feel free to subscribe to future episodes here on YouTube. And if you have Stargate friends who might like this clip, let them know about us. Be sure to visit dialthegate.com to view the complete archive, as well as transcripts from past interviews. I'll see you on the other side.